All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Game Dev Show. I'm here with Paul, Jason, and Andrew, and of course, myself. And today we're going to be talking about quite a few different things. First, I wanted to talk about Game Dev Guild. We had that last week, which is why there was no show last week. We were all kind of at the conference watching talks and talking about game development stuff. We've got the results in for some of the surveys and the reviews of the sessions for Jason's story versus Uri. It's been a big topic that we've been waiting for the results on. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Google's new announcements, some of the stuff that they've been doing. They just had their keynote, was it yesterday or the day before? And Microsoft's got theirs upcoming, which it looks like is going to be largely AI related stuff. So I thought this would be kind of interesting. And then we've also got the spring sale going on right now. So if you haven't checked out the spring sale, there's a link to everything in there. But Paul and Andrew both have stuff in there. You've got World Streamer 2. You want to tell everybody what that is real quick?
Yeah, that's what Streamer 2 is in the flash sale. It's, as it says, what streaming asset. It takes your big scenes for open world scenes, splits them into smaller ones, and then saves them. And if you click play, it loads them by batch. So you can make open world games in Unity.
It's a very cool tool, and it's one of the things that I wish existed like when I first started using Unity, because I wanted to build exactly that and had no clue how to do it. I don't know that it was technically possible way back then, but it was in the very early days when I wanted to build it exactly that. It's kind of cool. Andrew, you had one thing in here in the sale as well. What was that? The Fantasy Complete Pack?
This is what you put in that open world game you just made with World Streamer 2. You make your world with that, and then you put all of these characters in it, and you fly around on dragons and ride around on horses and run around with your legs too, I guess. So it's all the fantasy characters. That's the most popular Infinity PBR pack because it's got all the stuff in it. It's got the humans, elves, half orcs, dragons, goblins, horse, armor, weapons, sound, music, concept art. Probably something I'm forgetting. So
just about everything.
Yeah, it's the easy button. It's the use this, and you got everything you need to start. Now
you go build your own RPG or MMO.
Yep.
Yeah, they're awesome packs.
Every single one of us should build our own MMO RPG. It's really easy.
Super simple. Yeah. Actually, I got to go. I'll tell you guys about that later. I got to go hang out with some of my MMO friends somewhat recently. And since I was showing everybody else's cool stuff, Jason, I also wanted to show your thing real quick and let you tell everybody what this is real quick, because it looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just been a little something I'm working on. I'm kind of working on a client project at the moment, and there's a hex grid involved. And so basically, I had to do a lot of research into rendering stuff again and refresh myself on how you render 40,000 odd tiles efficiently. But yeah, it's kind of fun. So basically, it's kind of hard to visualize here. I should have shown the other debug one, but there's a grid that's invisible. That's a humongous 40,000 tile grid. And you've got like a little rendering camera circle, and you sort of drive the circle around. Or in this case, you actually drive the map and leave the circle stationary. And then you sort of look at the tiles, and you can then walk around and interact with it. It's got A-star pathfinding. It's got the generative mesh with mesh smoothing on the terrain, so it has like generative islands and seeds and things, and yeah, various animations on the sides for interpolating scale based on distance, and a few other fun bits. It's been a fun little project. I've written more code in the last few weeks than I have in the last few months.
It is definitely very, very pretty. I'm interested to see what the final result looks like. So speaking of graphics and stuff, I don't want to bring it up this week or talk about it too much this week because Uri is not here. I'm going to wait till Uri gets a chance to join in on the discussion. But I actually got through the shader math chapter finally. On the airplane, I realized with no distractions, I was able to make it all the way through chapter 2 that explained the math for matrices and basically the math needed for shaders. And I don't understand it all, but I kind of started to understand. It made a lot more sense after reading it like 1.5 times on the plane. So I want to talk about that sometime in the near future. So that was in that book. What was it? Writing Quality Shaders for Unity, I think was the name of the book. I've lost track of the name. I don't have it with me. You know which one it is, right, pal?
Yeah. I also read it. I think I'm on chapter 3 or 4. Yeah, it's a great book for learning how to write shaders from bottom up. Yeah, building.
It seems to be.
Yeah, I just opened it.
Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna get into chapter 3. I started chapter 3 a little bit, and then we started landing, so I haven't gotten all the way through there. But I need to continue on with that. I want to have a discussion about chapter 2 though, because the math in there still a little bit confusing, and I had some questions, and I figured maybe next week or whenever we can get your eye on too, and just have a big discussion about it. It'll be a lot of fun. And if anybody else has read that book, let me know what you think about it, and if you have any feedback or thoughts too. It was the book. There's the link. Thank you, pal. Let's bring it up. I'll pop that one over to here and hit share this tab. It's this book right here. I'll drop a link in chat as well. Building Quality Shaders for Unity using Shader Graph and HLSL. And it shows how to do stuff with the built-in render pipeline, URP, and I'm not screen sharing. Right there. Built-in render pipeline, URP, and HDRP. So it kind of explains them all. And there's only one left. Oh, I guess see if anybody orders it or if it disappears. That's a surprise. I'm sure they'll get more of them.
Well, now it's a race.
Yeah, a race to go grab the last paperback. I can't imagine there's only one of them left. I'm sure not be an issue. Anyway, I was just refreshing to see if it disappeared. So, first thing I want to talk about today was just GameDev Guild. You were all there. I know, Andrew, you were a little bit busy because you had to work a bit, but did you get to see many of the sessions?
Not yet. I plan on doing that in the coming couple weeks once things slow down at the day job and in my personal life. I've been building a fence in my backyard, so that's been taking up my non-day job time. So
wait, are you building this like physically yourself? You're out there with hammer and nails and you're just putting up the boards?
This muscle hurts a lot right now, and this joint hurts a lot from shovels. Turns out the ground that I'm digging in is full of rocks like this big.
Ooh.
Yeah, so but I'm done digging holes, so there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see me back on live streams and stuff once that project is complete.
Nice. Okay. And then, so Jason or Powell, I'm curious of the sessions that you saw, and I think you said you saw them all, right, Jason? You caught up?
Yeah. In general, what I do is I don't watch them live because I'm chatting with people in the main hall area. But afterwards, I download the whole lot, throw them to Eagle, and then I'll watch the whole lot in one big session. So yeah, I eventually got through the whole lot.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. I think next year I'm going to pre-watch them all so I can chat more. Because I missed out on a lot of chatting because I wanted to watch the sessions and have lots of questions ready and kind of have it fresh on my mind. But I think I'm going to readjust. But I was curious, what was there anything that really stood out as super exciting or interesting or useful for stuff that you're going to do in the near future?
Well, you know me in general, I'm a big fan of architecture-based talks. So Dan's was very interesting. Specifically, it's all stuff that I kind of agree with and have been saying anyway. But it's fun hearing someone because the way his talk went was he talked about his own experience finding out what you should and shouldn't do in a game engine relative to enterprise development, and it's the same journey I had. So it's very validating having someone else go through the same experience you did. The Corvallis' talk was entirely new to me. I hadn't actually done any of that stuff before, so that's like homework I gave myself to come back with. Yeah, there was quite a few interesting talks. The utility AI is always a fan favorite of mine. That was Nick's one, I think. What else was there? There was... Oh, actually, I was quite surprised with the Git 101 talk because I expected it to be Git 101, right? But at the very end, there was
so did I. I thought it was going to be very intro, basic level. And it was like, no, here's Git, like replacing your entire workflow, all of your bug management and tracking and everything else.
Exactly. It's like using it for project management, using it for the integration at the end, using continuous delivery. It's like, oh, okay, that's a lot more than 101, definitely.
Yeah, especially in like 20 minutes. It was like all of that, like everything, and like that one surprised me. I remember that. that caught me off guard at how much there was there. That and Corvallis is as well. I mean, there were. I don't know about you, but I would say for me, it's usually about like 4 out of 5 talks. I find like there's something that I want to go use right away, which I always expect. I never expect 100% because people have different interests and stuff. But I was just glad that it was still about that high. Like almost after every talk, I had notes of stuff that I wanted to go do and things that I wanted to use, even from the start with Thomas's talk. I was like, oh, it's fucking great. So. What about you, pal? Anything that stood out? Was it your own session?
Yeah, for me, I think Jason's talk, Your Eyes. So 2 talks from things that I like. That was okay, yeah, but that's something that we talk all the time, and it's just normal stuff. And I think I really liked the Thomas Blash and Lana Lux talks, yeah. So more about making games, 2 different approaches and 2 sides of the same possibility how to create a studio and games, yeah. Because Lana's talk was solo dev and Thomas was building an entire studio around the game. Yeah. So these 2 talks were too interesting for me.
Yeah, that was a really good like contrast right at the beginning. Start with a small team versus solo, and they have very different experiences, it seems, on how they put them together and how they kind of build the games, and both seem to work. So it's kind of cool.
I did like that with the talks in general. How very clearly, again, maybe it's just if you've been in the industry doing different jobs for a while, you can like laser focus tell where someone's history comes from by the way they present information. And there was like a load of talks where they're like very gamer focused, where they came from game development, and then there's a bunch of enterprise talks for people who are system builders, and then there was a bunch of talks for people who were doing DevOps stuff. And it's like I can tell where your like career trajectory has been based on this stuff. A great example for me was with Jay's talk, because Jay does sound, and I mean like not just does sound as a like I make some music sometimes for games. He properly does it for studios for games to the point where he knows what he's talking about. And hearing him talk about it is like it's very fun because it's no fluff. It's just like, okay, you want to do this, you don't do this, this will cause you problems, make sure these values are set to these things. And it's like I love that stuff because you get like a free pass of having to, because I've done a lot of research for that myself, and I was talking to him in the hall beforehand, and he said, oh, you probably won't get anything out of the talk, it's all stuff, it's mostly for beginners. But again, it's that curse of knowledge thing. A lot of the stuff he's talking about, yes, I've talked about it myself, or I've been tangential to it, but like he's lasering through a whole load of things which are like just nuggets of, oh, actually that's a good point, I hadn't thought of that, or like little bits here and there. So yeah, it's one of those things where someone does a field so much, there's a lot of information condensed in a very small amount of time, which is very useful.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I try to keep the talk times down to like 25 minutes max too. I feel like it forces people to kind of condense it down and get rid of all or get rid of a lot of the extra stuff. Although I was surprised at how much random funny shit I was able to fit into there alongside all of the interesting things. That fucking talk, that one, I guess that was one of my favorites. Not just because the content was really good, but the presentation and the amount of work put into it. It just kind of.
I did legitimately chuckle a couple times. So
I was laughing. What the fuck? How did you like? And that was like a day of prep. Like, hey, I'm going to do a full talk and replace somebody. I'll put it all together, do all these slides, and make it funny in a day. So, I was definitely super, super impressed. Anyway, enough about my old stuff. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully people enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I'm going to go back through and rewatch the talks and stuff. But coming up, there's Unite in is it in Amsterdam or Copenhagen?
Yeah, it's Amsterdam.
Okay, that's coming up is November, if I remember right. I don't know if there were specific dates yet. Are you all still thinking about going?
I'm definitely aiming for this one. I'm hoping to actually make it to this one. So
if I can find a way, I will be there.
All right. I'm still thinking very likely. I'm getting less and less afraid of flying, so if I can get that fear down even more, then we'll see. Been doing it a lot the last couple days. Okay, so I think that'll be an interesting one. I'm really curious to see what the talks are going to look like, though, too, and the sessions and all that stuff.
That's still that's still not looking for any talks, so we are waiting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to see what that schedule is going to look like. Make
Yeah,
sure that
because-
it's going to be at least a couple days of content.
Yeah, because it's only 2 days, yeah, so it's quite short for Unite.
Yeah.
Compared to the old days before
Yeah.
pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were only like 3 days before,
2
right?
days. What was it like? Day
Friday,
two
Saturday,
was the
Sunday, or
big-
something.
Yeah,
No,
day 2
yeah,
have a
but
big
sometimes it
party.
started it was sometimes there that it was evening, then 3 days of conference. Yeah, the day
Yeah.
before it was getting the badges, and then was evening,
Yeah.
some spectacle or some networking, something like that.
Mhm.
That was the first day, and then were 3 days of conference. Yeah, so it was basically 3.5 day. Yeah,
Yeah.
or once on GDC they were for 5 days. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Unity's got somebody asked in chat. Is anyone going to Unity's Developer Day in Austin on June 15th? I didn't know about that. Did you know about that?
I didn't know about
Nope.
that.
Let's see.
Are they having a lot of
Unity.
them this year?
No,
I don't know. I didn't know that there were developer days.
I went to a
This is
I think it was called Developer Day before the Los Angeles Unite way back in 2016. That was interesting, though. I was insanely tired because I flew down that morning rather than coming the night before, trying to save a little bit of money. And so I kept falling asleep during the whole thing. So I had to leave to take a nap in the middle of it.
I don't see any info on it on the web. Lem, can you post some links to it?
Yeah. Or
Yeah, please send a link if you got one. I'm curious to check that out and see what it is. It's news to me. Cool. I don't know. I don't have anything else on Unite. I don't know if you guys got any other thoughts on there.
No, we will see how it's going after the time it went. Yeah,
yeah.
because it's new thing, new people are organizing it, so we'll see how it goes.
Here, let's pop it up. So yeah, this is the events page. I see Gamescom and DevCom and Unite, but I don't see anything in Austin. Then in Unite, what's going on? Yeah, November 15th through 16th. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna end up going to that. Even hopefully, as long as it's not just one day long, I'll probably end up going. And then I'll drop by Ireland, and it's like on the way, right?
Yeah.
Just fly right in.
I'll
think
set
it's
up,
on the
I'll set up
way.
a cot for you. Yeah, it's fine.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Actually, I met a couple other guys from over there too. I'll go say hi to. Maybe. I mean, realistically, I hate flying, so I'll probably minimize my flying. But we'll see. I'll just meet you there. I guess that would make more sense than dropping by your house. I'll drop by your house when you're gone.
Wow, creepy.
So one of the other things I wanted to talk to you guys about today was that the Google announcements. Have you guys seen what they released yet in the last?
I've seen the supercut memes where people are just having to go AI in like a sequence. So, yeah.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
it definitely seems like they're kind of all in on AI stuff right now. Let me pull up their webpage, but there's a ton of stuff. It was, I would say, 9 out of 10 things were AI or AI related, which doesn't really surprise me. Why is it not? Let me share this tab. Oh,
Ask the AI to do it for you.
there we go. Oh, we got a little pop up down here. But yeah, at the keynote, they released a bunch of different stuff from the updates on the new phone, and like there was a bunch of like kind of little silly stuff like generating backgrounds off of emojis with AI, which doesn't seem very exciting. But
honestly, the Adobe integration stuff is probably the most interesting, if you're to ask me, because that whole multimodal stuff is kind of where it's going to be interesting in the future.
Yeah, that was, I thought, one of the coolest things. That, and I liked the new physical device as well. But you gonna tell everybody about that, the Adobe part?
Yeah,
just
sure.
briefly what it was.
Yeah, so basically, for people who don't know, Adobe have been doing their own Mid-Journey like They're a sort of competing product, but the sales pitch for them is they own a giant library of images, so it's their images. So there's no issues like with all the other questionable stuff from the scraped Midjourney stuff. And so they're partnering with Google for this, and basically you'll be able to generate images inside of the prompts. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's called Firefly. Thank you for the name. And it, from what I was seeing in there, they're talking about it generates it in like basically everywhere. They got it in Google Slides, in their sheets. They got it on the search stuff. They got it for the phone backgrounds. You want to generate like a background. You tell it what you want, and then it generates a bunch, and you just kind of flip through them, and it's all using that Adobe again Firefly. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing about like APIs, right? The fact is Google have an entire suite of products. It's very easy for them to integrate new things into their suite of products. So pretty much everything you have from email onwards, they'll be able to just integrate with a couple of lines, I imagine.
Yeah, but the Microsoft does the same, yeah? They said that Office 360 will be having the AI in all of the tools, yeah. So
and I will say, honestly, as much as I'm like in the Google ecosystem for most of my products, I kind of like the look of Microsoft stuff more. I kind of think because they're more enterprise oriented. And if I'm being brutally honest, like Google was search. Now that search is no longer search, it's kind of the industry's changing. It's when you're trying to figure out where your niche is, what your model, they're leaning a little bit social with it. They're scattershotting whatever AI we can do to do fun things in every system by just adding an AI button to every tool we have. But there's no product. There's nothing they're selling you yet. There's nothing changing about it. It is like everything you do will be 10% better with AI or more. But Microsoft are trying to sell you, we will take business and AI it, as in like your entire management of your stuff is managed through this. It's like an ecosystem with all your files, all your stuff. And so to me, that's a more compelling package. It's like when there was the Office suite of tools or the Adobe suite of tools, Google doesn't feel like they're selling you an AI suite. It feels like they're adding AI to stuff like flavoring, as opposed to Microsoft, who are trying to sell you now on this is a new workflow. And so it's interesting. I'm not sold yet. I don't know, but I think I can see a world where I'm using Microsoft stuff for business side of things, but I'm using Google stuff for, socially rewriting emails or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I can see Microsoft starting to pull ahead recently. I mean, like I said, I've switched to using Edge on some devices. I haven't even installed Chrome on them, like on new devices, just because I no longer need it. They can search just fine. And yeah, I could definitely see that. The Google ones seem kind of cool, but they definitely feel, since they're kind of integrated, like they're third-party integrations, that they don't feel probably as natural. And I wonder how that's going to work for financials, because like I said, Microsoft's kind of also selling you the AI product as well, and the back end of it, where Google is going to Adobe for that, and then who's getting the money? Where's that coming from?
Well, I think because integration is an important part. Like AI isn't just AI broad spectrum. It's not a scattershot tool. Like for an example of this, everyone knows by now I use Obsidian for my note taking and for my management of my stuff. And there's like 15 different plugins for ChatGPT to integrate with your notes. In fact, I've written at least 5 of my own at various stages for Unity. Like it's like 6 lines of code to write something that does ChatGPT integration. It's very easy. But in contrast, I have another thing which is called mem.ai, which is a different online note-taking tool. But its sales pitch is it has AI integrated with your notes suite. So it's not you like taking a chunk of text, sending it to a thing, getting it back and asking a question. It is like you have a vault of information, you're creating notes, and you can ask it questions like, what did I do last Thursday? Or what was that thing I meant to remember about that meeting I went to? Or who's the speaker for that talk I was on, I went to last Friday? And it knows your vault, it knows your notes, and it will give you like conversation responses. So I've been using it for that kind of stuff, where I can go back over my notes and ask it questions like, I watched a video last week about level design and they talked about this thing. What was that again? And it'll go and like, oh, these are the videos you watched. Here's the transcriptions. Here's the bit. And here's the bit you're talking about. So that to me is an infinitely more compelling product, because it's like your data. And that's kind of where I see the differentiating line. Google have a better chance for that because more of my ecosystem is with Google. But again, their business model, kind of like with the home stuff, it doesn't feel, it feels more like soft integration. It doesn't feel like problem solving, and that's what Microsoft feels like they're going for, and that's kind of where I'm leaning. I don't want a world where everything is just flavored with AI. I want someone to like see problems, make solutions, and tailor make them to solve problems. And yes, mem.ai is the note take. There's like loads of them. I use like 6 different note taking tools for different things. I use Workflowy for project planning because it's much easier to fast build graphs, and like yeah, they all do different things. So I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah. So mem. I'm going to try that one out. But I was trying to find in here. I don't know if it's in this one, but I know that Google had in their keynote they were showing something very similar as one of their products where you give it all of your data essentially, and it's going to train off that. I don't know exactly how it worked though. I was watching it this morning, but I need to rewatch the entire thing, like completely focused without any kids on me.
Yeah, I'm interested how this is going to go because right now, if you are using it for your own stuff, there's basically 2 directions. You either send it tokens, ask question, get answer on tokens, or you train it with a data set of training data. And so anybody who's trying to use quote unquote ChatGPT for your own products or apps, it'll cost you an absolute nightmare to send it anything larger than like, yes, in the later models, you can send like 14,000 tokens or whatever, but that's going to cost you per token for humongous questions that are just, it's not worth the data. The real value of this is building a pre-trained model. It's like taking your data and growing the data set. And so companies that have the resources to do that and like do it internally are probably more likely to do interesting stuff with this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's where it looked like where Google was trying to go, like with very specific trained models that were either customer trained or trained by them on specific things. And I assume that's also what Microsoft's going to do. It's going to be very similar. You'll see all their announcements in whatever, like a week when build kicks off. I wanted to pop up Powell's link real quick, and then I want to get to that one too, Andrew, because I think that ties in. And there's also a show I watched last night that I think fits in perfectly with all this that we should probably loosely discuss and at least make sure you guys know about. So this was the story about this Jeffrey Hinton guy who kind of, from what I understand, was one of the lead innovators on AI.
They're calling him one of the godfathers of AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, from what I understand, he was like one of the main guys pushing this stuff and innovating in it, even when the hardware wasn't there and wasn't possible. And that it was him and like his grads. One of the Open CEO, the OpenAI CEO or CTO guy is like one of his grad students, right? As I was working on the projects with him too. I forgot that guy's name now too. My brain is all over the place, but the guy that everybody knows about also was with him, and he quit. It's been about a week, right, since he did the leaving from Google, and there was the article. There was I think there obviously there've been a couple articles, but he did that first interview where he talked about leaving, and one of the reasons was that he wanted to be able to speak kind of freely about dangers of AI. I think he mentioned that he had a couple reasons that he wanted to leave, but that was one of the big ones.
Yeah, he's. It's. I think there's a big debate between these founders of AI. Yeah, Elon Musk, who created OpenAI, Jeffrey. There's even Steve Wozniak is taking some stand on it. Yeah, because we can see that the environment between those figures that work on the AI the most is splitting between those who are against working on it further before we have some kind of rules how we can create them, and those who are saying it's safe and we should go further. Yeah. And Jeffrey was first on the side that we can go further, but now he's more leaning to we should think more about it.
Yeah, that was what I got from watching him and reading through that he seemed at first to not be too worried about things like AGI appearing or dangers of it, and thought that it was a good 50 to 70 years out before there would be problems. And now he thinks he was wrong. It was essentially what it boiled down to. And that the threats are certainly.
Yeah, I think the biggest threat he mentions in the link I now posted, it was a month ago interview with Jeffrey when he still was at Google, I think the biggest threat was talking about, and what is interesting, because we are talking now about ChatGPT, Google, and so stuff. Yeah, this is for commercial use, but we still have AI that's also developed by many of these companies for military use. And he states what is, as for the commercial use, it's not as bad. But if we have AI that thinks it for itself, who should it kill? It starts to be more debating. Yeah.
Yeah. It starts to get a lot more, I think, freaky and scary.
Mhm.
So I want to here. Show this real quick. So last night, this show popped up, and I watched the first episode of it. Have you guys seen this or know this thing existed?
Yeah, I know, but I haven't seen it yet.
So it was I won't spoil it. I'll just spoil the first minute and a half. But it's just essentially none. I don't know why they haven't really gotten into any of that in the first episode. But in a world where it's 2023 and there's an AGI that is giving everybody advice through their little earpiece, basically, and telling them what they should do, what not to do, and it keeps trying to contact her and telling people to go find her and get a hold of her and talk to her because it wants to talk to her and she doesn't want to talk to it. But it's freaky as fuck because there's like little kids, like talking and repeating after a computer, and they're all talking to it, and I can totally see that happening. Like people are already like a tenth of the way there with their phones. All you gotta do is get it to the point where it's supernatural and in their ear, and yeah, it just kind of freaks me out a little bit. When I saw it, I was like, oh, this is scary. This could be like in the next 5 years even, or luckily I'm wrong on all my predictions, so it probably won't be anywhere near there. But it still freaked me out when I was watching it. So I gotta watch episode 2 and see if it still freaks me out. But yeah, it was definitely crazy. I would say it's worth watching at least the first episode. Although it's really weird because it starts off with a nun chopping people up with swords and then transforms into AI and stuff within like the first 2 minutes.
Huh.
So it was very confusing. Don't watch it with little kids around.
Good discussion.
Anyway, but yeah, it freaked me out because I assume one day soon we'll probably have something like that.
I can't imagine.
It'll be Siri though, and everybody's just talking to Siri.
Yeah, we've heard that Apple is behind the 8 ball, right? With Siri, from reports saying that their insistence on privacy has kept them from doing more with it. But it's obviously a no-brainer that the Siris and Alexas of the near future will be AI powered. It's like once they can ensure its privacy and safety and to some level that they're happy with, really to keep their market not get in trouble. Because once Alexa starts spouting off some Nazi stuff, then you're gonna have a problem. So as long as they can avoid that, then it's gonna be the next thing, and it makes sense, right? And once you have that, then I think, Jason, what you're getting at with Microsoft making it more of a tool for very specific purposes, that's the next step. We've got a general Alexa do things for me in my home, but the next step will be AIs that are designed to work with you on specific thing. I'm sure people are working on, I think already there's therapy AIs being worked on, and there's going to be various AI chat bots essentially that are designed for very specific purposes beyond the general stuff. So
yeah, there's, as much as I love this topic because there's so much in it, there's like 10 different ways to attack it. Like for me personally, I find the philosophy arguments more interesting because a lot of the debates fall into, it's very easy to go straight to the what if there's evil killer robots, or what if there's mind controlling AI. It's like, sure, but that's not how worlds collapse, right? They tend to collapse in much more subtle ways, and there's a lot more interesting thought experiments that lead down that road. There's a great one called Rocco's Basilisk, which is a very interesting thought experiment in the concept that if an AI ever does get so powerful that it takes over the world, it conceivably is using data to do that and get powerful enough that it can retroactively understand things, that if it gets so powerful it takes over the world, it it's incentivized to get rid of people who didn't help it exist. Therefore, it is psychologically beneficial for you now to begin facilitating the AI taking over the world, because if you don't, it'll basically get back at you later when it finally takes power, because it's inevitable to happen, right? So there's lots of these interesting self-perpetuating arguments. But I don't know. I just find that the problem I have with this entire branch of discussion is a lot of people are talking about it from a movie lens. And I really, I can't stress this enough. Movies are meant to represent fears of the times. You can historically go back through every movie ever made, and they're allegorical to something. The most obvious example being there was a whole slate of movies at one stage in the past, Attack of the 50-Foot, this, that, or the other, or the nuclear blank, or the whatever, and they all represent the same thing. They all represent the genetic transformation and dangers and risk associated with nuclear war and all of that. So it's all retrospectively the same metaphor wrapped in different ways. Just like with population crisis, and when people were worried about overpopulation and various issues, a lot of that bled into a rise in zombie media and literature, because it's this idea of people and swarms and all of the health stuff that comes along with more people, right? So all of this is to say, I can understand the interest in AI as a talking point, and I can understand the fear of the times matching that. But a lot of the discussion falls into using historical metaphors to continue the conversation. So you think future AI, you think Terminator, but that's not what that really means. That's a different allegory for a different thing. The real horrors of the future is more in the Black Mirror universe. It's more subtle ways that will change our behaviors as a direct result of AI that leads us to be worse people for this, that, or the other. There's a lot of really interesting discussion around this about this Moloch concept. I don't know how much you've looked into this, but yeah, that to me, I think, is the number one most important concept to research right now. It's not about, flying drone armies or, laser AIs. It is this subtle game theory problem that is incentivizing us to slowly destroy ourselves through the use of AI. So I would say research into that aspect of it for if you really want to not sleep at night.
More worried about the beauty filters. Yeah.
It's subtle, but that is
definitely a practical issue, and it's freaking hilarious when I see that stuff. I don't use any of those apps, but every now and then I'll see a video somebody showing talking about them. I'm like, oh yeah, it's essentially what I always wanted for a video game. I could essentially transform myself into an orc on camera and talk live, and it'll just work fine.
Wait, I thought you were using a beard filter right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that there aren't very many orc filters or whatever, but yeah, it's definitely nuts. I wanted to pop this link up though that Andrew shared, because I've seen this too, and I still don't completely understand the details of it, but it seemed nuts.
Yeah.
They're reading an MRI to tell what somebody was looking at and thinking.
Okay, this is one of those things where it's not analogous directly, but we've lived in a world where the marketing around the phrase "we can read your mind" or brainwave technology has been around a very long time. And for anybody who's ever actually programmed for those things, I know you have, because you have the various EKG sensors. They are glorified analog sticks tied to arbitrary brain zappy numbers that are like focus energy points. They're not actually reading anything. That's like saying that I can, communicate with you by listening to the volume level you're speaking and then going, oh, he's shouting now, must be important. Oh, he's quiet now. That's the level of fidelity. And so
this does go a little bit further than that.
Sure. I'm not saying it's not going further, but what I'm saying is that it's very easy. You can build a map of stuff. Then you can build something that generates data, and you can associate the data to the map. It's like saying that people will falsely think we've got infinite zoom technology, but what we've really got is technology which can add pixels to data to make pictures more detailed. But that's not really zoom. That is fake generative data. And that's not to say this is wrong, but it's there's a whole thing called the music of the universe. People talk about plants are screaming. That was one of the papers that came out a while back. But this is all data analysis and subjective. When you research how these papers are done, it is people choosing a spectrum to listen to, applying sound waves to it, and then choosing how to interpret the sound wave, and it just kind of stacks on. So I'm not saying it's not interesting. I'm just saying it's there's 8 levels of interpretive information here that you have to be very particular with how much you believe, because I don't know. I'm suspicious.
The first two things to keep in mind is that there's two things they point out in it. One, the thoughts are trained on a person. So you can't train my brain and then all of a sudden read Jason's or Pablo's thoughts. That's not how it works. So it's not they can't throw something on your head and read your thoughts.
So it is more like what Jason was saying.
And then the other thing is you can fool it simply by thinking other things. So if your brain's someone's trying to read your thoughts, you can just think of other things, and suddenly the AI is like, I have no idea. But the general gist of it is, if they train enough on your brain waves, your brain is consistent with the patterns that it does, and the AI is able to come up with pretty similar things to what you're actually viewing or thinking. It's not completely accurate. Like the example they gave in the article is something about your driver's license, and they get it like, oh, I haven't even learned to drive, even though the thing was, I don't have my driver's license at the moment, or something like that, where it's like close enough. And the real goal is to help people who have issues communicating to communicate. So someone who can't speak, Stephen Hawking might take a huge advantage of this, right? In a matured version of this, you can imagine his thoughts could be presented more quickly than they were using his interface that he had. So I think it's a very interesting thing.
It is interesting. I definitely, I'm curious to see where it goes. But again, I've seen this particular dance a few times. Like the other one is, again, I come from the world of doing magic tricks, and usually in the right circumstances, you can read someone's mind with about an 80% accuracy using some very clever tricks and probabilities and various other things, to the point that you have to be more skeptical with how this information works. A good example of this being the lie detector. The branded term lie detector is not a lie detector, it is a polygraph machine. And what a polygraph machine actually measures is what are called arousal factors, which are just things like your heart rate or the skin temperature, or various things which are correlated with kind of a different thing. It's got nothing to do with lies. It is like, if you're stressed, these numbers go up. If you're lying, you're stressed. Therefore, I can make an assumption that you may be lying in these scenarios, right?
Yeah, I went to the mall once, and the Scientologist had a booth at the mall, and so I was like, "Yeah, I'll take my reading." So they had me grab these two little pulls, and the whole time they were asking me questions that were actually quite personal about like abuse and stuff. And I was like, "Wow!" So I was just looking at the little meter, they're trying to sell you on like, "Ooh, when you think about these things, your whatever goes up." I started like purposely trying to make it go up and down. I could, just by making myself angry about something, or thinking this, or just gripping tighter. And so and polygraphs, they're not allowed in courts because you can't trust them. They're basically not trustworthy. Is
it because they're bullshit?
They're not actually measuring what people think. If you're just really nervous, they might do something, and it's up to a human or a computer algorithm to say, oh, well, it seems like they're not telling the truth here. But it's not even that. They can't even go to the level of they're not telling the truth. It just means something might be off on that one, but not this other one. And in the end, you could get a false reading very easily. So they're not something you can trust at all.
If you watch this episode, I don't know if you've seen it. I think
I've watched the whole show. Yeah, I've seen every episode. Of Penn and
it's great.
Stuff, yeah.
This episode of Penn and Teller's bullshit is all about it, and how a large percent of what they actually do with them is just trick people into confessing during the lie detectors. Like they use a lot of it to trick them up and get them to say things instead of actually catching them in anything, because there's nothing admissible from it anyway. It was interesting.
But it's not even like these ones. There's other stuff too. Like years back, there was someone selling a product which was an animal translator, and it was again getting loads of marketing and stuff. And it was like, look, it doesn't like say what it's saying, but it does tell you that it's feeling X, Y, or Z or whatever. But then once you like look 5 steps down past the level of the thing, you're like, oh, it's the same thing, right? You're checking what are called arousal factors. You're testing these levels of, is it stressed? Is it angry? Is it stomach grumbling? Is it hungry? Like, you're not actually detecting anything. You're just, you are detecting stuff, but you're selling it as some kind of intuition or understanding, when what you're really doing is checking number good, number bad, right? And there's
a show on Apple, Extrapolations, where in that one, it goes through the future. It's very depressing. If you want to be depressed, go ahead and watch it. It's actually not bad, but it is depressing. It goes through the future, and there's a couple episodes where they are talking to whales using AI, where and I think there's some early articles on that concept that whales are smart enough, they have language. If we can just train an AI to figure out what that language is, then not only could we understand what they're saying, but then we could translate what we want to say to their language and use speakers in the ocean to broadcast messages. Of course, you're going to have to figure out how to translate concepts and ideas and other stuff. But it's an interesting idea. Whether it comes to fruition, yeah, it's 20 years away, apparently, when we are able to talk to whales.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're almost there.
there's also some studies about plants that when they are stressed or when that's happening with them, they emit ultrasonic sounds.
That's what
So
Jason
there
was
are
saying.
yeah, that's I think the scientists were able to determine the stress and the lack of water, the lack of sun, and several types of ultrasound sounds. And if they treated based on those sounds, the plants were able to grow better.
Yeah,
So
that makes
goes
sense from an
right.
evolutionary standpoint, especially if these things that they're emitting are something that would attract something that would help them, or do something else that would essentially help them. It's just evolutionarily, but they don't have brains. Plants don't have brains, so they're not actually.
All my plants are fake, so that way I won't anger them and
they'll
upset
come up
them
behind you and grab you.
Yeah, just come alive.
Which also like gets to that interesting thing too, is that like language is insufficient, right? Language is a thing we use to represent stuff as we understand them. But taxonomies of stuff, we make them up arbitrarily. There's a very fascinating difference between stuff. So there's the general concept of facts of the world. Like there are facts that people's eyes are blue or green or whatever, but the decision to label there are blue-eyed people and green-eyed people, that taxonomy, that separation is a decision we've made. Like you could equally do it by width or distance of pupils or whatever else. And so when we use words like consciousness or intelligence or whatever, we're just frame of referencing them. And so a lot of these things, they don't have an intrinsic understanding or meaning. And so what's fascinating to me is this conversation is going to change a lot, because I think it's pretty clear that AI is not conscious. It is not going to be conscious almost anytime soon, unless we really extend the difference of what that means. But whether it's intelligent is a very different thing. And I'm pretty sure we're going to hit that boundary, if not already, with the whole AGI, right? Because that we're getting that percentage where some people, there's a researcher who's managed to get up to like 87% accuracy out of ChatGPT just by altering prompts and getting it to reiterate. So rather than doing one prompt, you get it to reprompt 5 or 6 times and pick the best answers, because you can lead it to get better answers. So the point is, it's already reaching the threshold with multiple iterations that puts it into AGI territory based on some scholars' research if you poke it numbers of times, right? Now, it's arguable whether that, how it works or whatever, but the general point is that if the measure is a certain number of like percentage, when it gets this percentage right on the average question you ask it, it's intelligent. Well, that's just a number improvement. That's arbitrarily just getting better. That's a hard measure to get. But the conversation around what's the difference between intelligence or consciousness or whatever, we're getting very dangerously muddy waters here.
What do you think the difference is between intelligence and consciousness? I mean, is there, if you get it smart enough and just leave it running and let it do whatever the hell it wants, like, does it not eventually just kind of, assuming that it can self-mutate and
this is one of those things where like if we're getting into like metacognition stuff, but the general idea is consciousness means an internal sense of self, a self-awareness of what you are and reflective understanding so that your decisions work on yourself as you think about them. In contrast, intelligence is your ability to perform actions. The more intelligent you are, the better you are at performing and doing things. So you can become infinitely intelligent, but you might have no internal sense of self. You might have no actual conscious collection of thought. There's something called the Chinese room experiment, which is this, that's too much to get into. But the general idea is you can demonstrate one but not the other. There are ways for you to kind of separate these concepts out, and yeah, it's consciousness is a whole different beast.
Can, but I'm just wondering, like, do you think that it's likely that you're just going to get consciousness if you throw enough power and intelligence at something and leave it around?
No, because I don't think you can add enough ones to get to the point where something's self-conscious. There's something called again, we're getting into muddy waters here, but there's something called Hume's gap or Hume's guillotine, and this is the idea, which is there's something called ises and oughts. So ises are facts of the world. It is raining. I have an umbrella. It is sunny outside. It is, Friday. Oh, these are facts, right? And then there's ought statements, which is you should use an umbrella, you should wear a raincoat and whatever. So these are two descriptively separate things. There's like a chasm between them. And I would say it's something similar in the vein of when we're talking about intelligence versus consciousness. There's a chasm here. And the question is, how do you build a bridge between one concept to the other? And Hume's law, or Hume's gap, whatever you want to call it, posits that you can never do that. There is no amount of is statements you can stack together to build a bridge across to an ought statement without using an axiom in the middle. What I mean by that is it might be intuitive to say it is raining, so you should use an umbrella. Well, what if you're in a game show and if you get wet, you win $1 million, right? So there's no is there. There has to be something in the middle which separates these two concepts and says, providing I want this, my intention is this. And so to go back to the conscious argument, you can have intelligence, you can have action, but that decision, that reasoning out about what I internally want and how it applies to these two concepts is a consciousness. And you can keep stacking numbers, but you're not going to get that. You're not going to generate this conscious emergent property. Some people might believe it's there, but that we're getting into fuzzy word terminology now. You're getting to the point where you're choosing to
Isn't that kind of how it appears for larger mammals? And the
yes,
I mean, I guess it depends. Like, is it just like I would assume that once you get to some certain amount of intelligence, then that consciousness is going
I
to
wouldn't say it's
emerge. At
intelligence.
least from what we see on biological things. I don't know. Maybe little amoebas and stuff are
Well,
conscious too. But like, I would assume once you get to like I don't know. I mean, really, I have no freaking clue.
You're getting,
I don't know crap about this stuff.
You're getting into money because here's the other thing too: is an office building intelligent? And it's like, well, that sounds like a silly question. Like, yes, but it's got a number of autonomous agents doing things that further goals that make it is more of a living being than an AI.
No.
Yeah, but think like if you're using the metric of it is a thing which does things that like get stuff done and has goals, a building in a company has more of that than an AI model does at the moment, right? So it's a weird line to start walking.
Maybe at the moment, but I don't know about in the near future, I guess.
I think the way I see it, if you take a baby human, and they grow up without any parents or anything, they're going to be messed up in the head, but they're going to be conscious. I think that's a reasonable assumption that consciousness will exist as we understand it, as we believe we have our own consciousness, that will exist in that person as well. So clearly the consciousness has to be either emergent, or has to be a product of whether it's emergent or just the end result of our brains and the way they're set up. I can imagine building a sufficiently powerful computer character that feels that's aware of itself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I can't imagine that character starting out with nothing and then growing itself into a conscious being. So you would have to get some sort of system that when you turn it on, doesn't have consciousness, is not aware of itself and its true nature, and over time becomes aware of that. We're able to do that because we have the ability to move around this world that we find ourselves in. We've got our fingers, we've got our sensory organs, and we have a system that processes it all that probably then creates this awareness of ourselves and the fact that we exist.
That is one of the arguments.
What if it could just do it really fast?
Yeah, that's one of the
same thing, but it's almost instant speed because it can bring in all that sensory data instantly.
Some people are saying it's just your data set problem, right? We have a data set of stuff that builds us, and we're just saying, what if we give that same data set to an AI? Could it generate a person effectively?
Yeah. The real question,
or just something conscious.
Would the consciousness be something that appears out of its behavior, its internal interactions with itself, or is that something that we have to essentially code? We could code that with a sufficiently powerful machine, but would that be true consciousness, or would that just be programmed consciousness?
I guess that the hot take I have is that I actually don't care. Like I'm doing this, it's an interesting thought experiment. But the thing is, I think whether or not we ever get to AI intelligence or whatever else, or well, consciousness past intelligence, is kind of irrelevant because there's a much more important thing step before that, which is human beings are fallible and easy to fool, and you'll be able to make a person believe something is intelligent slash conscious with very little information. Already you've got people who can engage with, put googly eyes on something and you're already going to emote for it. You know, if I take a bucket, put googly eyes on it and throw it off a bridge, you'll feel bad for the bucket. That's just how people are wired. So AI is going to very, very quickly hit the boundary of us treating them like people long before even mathematically we get to whatever levels that is. So it's kind of an arbitrary, pointless question, because the truth is we will have, for all intents and purposes, consciousness in our AI for our relationship ourselves, right? So like we're gonna fall for this very quickly.
And it goes back to, even with this question, I hope we would feel bad, because that is, as far as I see it, part of our humanity is the ability to feel bad. It all comes back to, you know, things like our brains and free will, and are we really in control and all that crap? Because the reality is no, we're not. And because when you can't control that, you feel bad. Psychopaths or sociopaths perhaps don't feel bad, but that tends to be understood as a quirk, as something different from the norm, an outlier. So yeah, we're going to feel
a problematic one too.
Yeah. And you know, I've had the discussion with some other friends of mine, not in a live stream, about whether humans should treat AIs nicely. I'm on the side that they should. Now, I had a live stream when I was working with ChatGPT, and I thanked it. And some people in chat were like, I want to be angry with the AI. I want to be able to be an asshole to the AI. And I'm thinking, you know what? Practice makes perfect. And if we have to be nice to the AI, that'll make the world a better place, because it'll train people to be nice to other people, rather than thinking, and you know, you can see this effect with, if you've ever known anyone who's kind of an asshole to their servants or to their help that they
to the waiters,
or to the waiters, or just anyone who they somehow feel is like beneath them in some hierarchical class structure.
when you hear them brag about how they yelled at a waiter,
All that, yeah. And so, you know, humans are very, very quick to join into clubs and put people beneath them. So if we can put AIs beneath us. So anyways, I do hope we always feel bad when the AI gets pushed down, the robot gets pushed down, and it makes a noise that cries. And I hope that we all learn to be very nice to our AIs, not because they're going to take over the world. And remember, that puts a level of humanism in them that they may not have, but just because it makes us better people.
Yeah, but we can also check what the studies about games say, yeah, because we have NPCs in games. We can analyze how people behave to them in games, and depending on types of games, of course, because FPS and strategy is something different than adventure games. Yeah, for example, the game deck released some info about how most of the players behaved there, and most of the players, what was for me, I didn't think it would be that much amount. I gave the link to you, Jason.
Oh, not only is it that much. Yeah. Here's a fun fact, right? There's cognitive dissonance about this out the wazoo, right? They have done studies where they've put gamers in a room playing a game, and then afterwards they ask them an interview question of what did they do in the game, and they will often over-exaggerate the bad things they did, about how many, like if it's something like Assassin's Creed, they'll talk about all the people they ran around and killed and all the murder they did, but if you watch them, that's not how they played the game. They actually played the game a lot more chill and relaxed and whatever. So people will, like, just like real life, they'll fantasize about doing bad things, but even in the game, most people will still act normally to the most parts of the law. So in general, across the board, most people play most games good, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, this is the showcase. Yeah, there was most people chose good side in 97%, and one more, further, that's also in some situation in the games, most people were choosing the good side. They weren't. Each side was able to do the same thing. Yeah, each option was able to generate the same victory by it. Yeah, but most people chose the good side.
And what's even more interesting than that is the fact that there are people who play the game both ways. They actively, purposefully will do the Paragon and the evil runs.
Yeah.
And so even the percentage evil skews are still, a lot of them are people actively trying to get the other game content. That is not a decision on a purposeful basis.
Yeah.
So not only is the number low, of that percentage, less than half, if not even less than that, of those are people actively engaging with the game through those mechanics. So the number of people who are inherently bad when they play games is actually infinitesimally small.
It reminds me of reality TV shows in the first real world. Arguably one of the very first mainstream reality TV shows. They put a bunch of people in a room and for a while, and they found out that everyone got along just fine, and the TV show wasn't that interesting. Turns out people get along pretty well when you put them together. So they had to start purposely finding people who would be actively button heads, and they had to start pushing them to get mad at each other. And now you get these personalities that just want to be on a reality TV show that's because they're the type of person who is very willing to be the dark side, the asshole,
Yeah,
etc.
and there's so many postmortems on that too, where you see people who would talk about shows they were on and how much the producers would actively like hold back food, and they would do different scenarios to put them in stressful high situations, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that happens a lot. Because like one of the most common studies pointed to for this is the Milgram experiment with the people who became prisoners or prisoner guards. But that is like extremely not reproducible. It is fascinating, and there's something to be said. There's some interesting topics there, but many times people have tried to recreate the results of that study, and it has not worked out the same way because it's just not how people act. A lot of this stuff is very kind of mistaken perspective shifts. There's so many of these experiments that demonstrate people tend to favor empathy. What was the other one? It's not Milgram. No, sorry, that Stanford Prison Experiment, was it? Yeah, there was the other one as well, which was the white jacket one, which was that electrocuting someone when you're asking questions, and whether or not you'll follow along with somebody who's giving authoritative orders and whatever. But a side point of that anyway is just to say that even that one, people would follow orders if given orders by someone with an authority position, but they still felt bad doing it. So there's a psychological difference between someone's willingness to do harm versus their willingness to follow orders, but the empathy is always still there. They just might push past the boundaries if the rules of the system dictate, which is what we demonstrate with games, right? You're more likely to do bad deeds if the game incentivizes you to do it by gating content behind it. But that's not changing your empathy levels. That is just incentivizing behavior, you know?
And as a human, we are very able to know that this is not real. When I kill a rabbit inside New World, I'm not actually killing a real rabbit. Now, I think that might change if in order to kill the rabbit, I was in a VR scenario where I had to use my hand, got haptic feedback that felt like fur, had to grab a knife. I would not play that game. I wouldn't enjoy that game. But in New World, I'm like, I'm going to throw my spear and the rabbit, I killed it. And now my spear's in my hand again. That's neat. I know that's fake.
Yeah, if you want to read, there's a study by my colleague. She was the narrative designer by the GameDev. She just get her PhD, and it's exactly on that topic. She tested how people, depending on with what type of NPCs the players play together. If the NPCs, depending what the type of players NPCs are there, how player will react to them after the game. Yeah. So if some type of NPCs will be their enemies, how they will react to them after the game, and if some NPCs will be their friends and their allies, how they will react to them. And the studies is quite interesting how the results of it. Yeah, because even it was, I think it was very simple game. It's on page 45. There's some screenshot. It was some strategy game where she exactly exaggerated for you to see the faces of the NPCs, yeah, so you could see them, and the results were that you take so much information from them, and you emotionally so attracted to them. So if you when somebody was your enemy, then just after playing it, you negatively associate this kind of face with the enemy, just by playing for 30 to 40 minutes. Of course, the less you play, then the time it takes for your emotions to recover is shorter. Yeah,
it's got to make all games with dragons as the enemies.
And yeah, that is actually more of an interesting thing on susceptibility to suggestion. Way above that, like there's a load of examples of this in the book Predictably Irrational, with things like how people, there's a concept called priming, where you can preface situations to put people in a mindset that will change all future behavior of questions you ask them. So having someone read the 10 Commandments before giving them a quiz, which you purposefully allow them to cheat in, will lower the percentage of people cheating. Not even if they're religious or not, just because you've reminded them of the concept of morality, and that's now percolating in their mind. Likewise, if you have someone do a financial interaction before sitting down and then giving them a task to do with a timer, if you have somebody ask for help, they're less likely to help that person because they're now in a work mindset, because they're now thinking about things financially and they're seeing a timing clock, so they're in a productive or competitive mode. So like percentage shifts are small, but they're enough that you can completely change people's behavior based on social priming. And so stuff like this is very the same. Like if you give people a certain kind of enemy in a game, they are primed now for that particular behavior or that particular attitude.
Yeah. That's why it's so important for our AI systems to be actively worked on to not reinforce stereotypes, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that real quick, but I wanted to pull up this comment just at least for Andrew, because I feel like he would at least like the show. If you haven't okay, I'm gonna stop eating jelly beans while I try to talk because apparently it just screws them the tongue. But Jury Duty, we're talking about reality TV shows, and that was the only one that I've seen recently that was pretty funny, where they got everybody is pretending to be real except for one dude on Jury Duty, and they're just crazy. It was pretty fucking.
No, I haven't seen that. I think I saw a headline about it, but I don't watch reality TV shows, so even if I saw it, I wouldn't skip over it. So.
It's much more of a comedy TV show than a reality TV show. In fact, I would say it's a comedy posing as a reality TV show.
I do thoroughly enjoy the experiments like that, where essentially you get one person who doesn't think they're being experimented on, but they're the one being experimented on to see how they react to scenarios. It's very fun.
And it's all just funny stuff. Yeah. So they're like way over the top hilarious with
there was a TV show, maybe it was Trigger Happy TV, some British show a long time ago, but maybe it was that show or something else, but where they got people in a waiting room to come in, and somebody didn't realize everybody else was in on it, but every time a bell went off, they would all stand up and then sit back down. And after all the plants were gone, the people being tested were still doing it, to the point where everyone was doing it and the new people were doing it too, and nobody knew why.
Yeah, I'm sure you like that experiment story.
There's one called the monkey ladder experiment. Have you heard that one? It's basically a similar premise. That idea of you have a load of monkeys in a cage, and you put a ladder in the middle, and you put bananas on the top. And every time a monkey goes up the stairs to get the bananas, you spray them with a water hose and knock them down. And you keep doing that until all of them basically know we're never getting those bananas. That's just not happening. If they're up there, just whatever. And then you slowly start replacing out the monkeys. And then after a while, no monkeys remain that have ever been hit by a hose. But if one of them tries to climb up, the others will pull them down. Because there's this institutionalized understanding of not going near this whatever. So it's just stuff like that is very fascinating.
Yeah.
Since this is the TV episode, that reminds me of the Apple TV show that I started watching too. This Silo one.
I'm about to start that today, actually. After work, I was going to watch an episode.
Well, they're all in a silo and they don't really know why. I haven't gotten through. It's only a couple episodes out, but like most of the Apple TV stuff, it's pretty damn good too.
So my now that I'm watching TV again, I'm annoyed by the cliffhanger endings that these seasons have, especially since I know not all of them will get picked up. So some of them will just cliffhanger and you'll never find out. So I was excited. This one's based on a book. So I was like, okay, good. It's going to have an ending. And then I realized, oh no, it's a book series. There's never going to be an ending.
Which is also why there are some parts in it where like, you can tell there was a full chapter and the directors just decided it wasn't interesting. So they fast forward through it and it's like 5 seconds of like, I'm pretty sure a whole side story was supposed to happen there. And they just showed it in 5 seconds and pretended that it didn't matter. Like, but yeah, it was another interesting one.
There's a graveyard of TV shows with uncompleted endings I've got in my past. There's a show called John Doe, which I really liked, which never got to finish. There's one called My Own Worst Enemy, which was really cool, with a guy who's like a spy with a split personality, which never got an ending. So many really interesting shows. Odyssey 5, like there's just none of these ever get endings, which is a real bummer.
Firefly.
Firefly. I was just gonna say. Yep. Yeah.
There was a show years and years ago called Jeremiah. It was 2002, I guess, with Luke Perry and stuff. It was one of the first things I watched on Netflix, I think, way back in the day, and it didn't have an ending. It got canceled, so I think they tried to end it real quick, but I really enjoyed it, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, it's over now. But that's what they did with Lost too, right? They suddenly had to end it, and they were like, shit, we have too many questions, no answers.
All right, I want to really quickly. There was one more AI thing that was Google related and code related that I wanted to talk to you guys about before I forget. And this was in one of their demos. So in this demo here, they're showing how they're generating some Python code, not knowing how to write any Python and having it generate code. And I mean, it's nothing super exciting and special. But the part that I thought was cool was it gave references to where the code actually came from, like the source of the code, and you could click through and see. And I think that's going to show that in this next, maybe not. There was a spot. Oh yeah, here it was showing. No. Somewhere in here, I saw the clip of it, and it showed the source code, like the forum thread where the original source code that it was trained on for the problem. And I thought it was kind of interesting that they were kind of doing that and trying to put that together. But they also did the same thing. If you go, oh, that's why this is the cut up one. That's why I'm not seeing it here. This is the in under 10 minutes version. I thought I had the full one. The full tab shared, but they had another one for writing too, where you're doing like research and writing docs, and it would also give all of those citations of all of the data and stuff and the original sources. And I thought that was interesting for the code side, for all the people that are worried about like the legal side of the source of their code and getting sued in big corporate environments especially, but also just on the accuracy side, being able to go back and look at the source of something, kind of get another view of it. I thought that was super handy too. And I'm sure the document side matters too for people that have to write school docs or whatever and have to have citations and want to verify their stuff. But for me, it's mostly the code. I was curious what you guys thought about that though. Do you guys care about like seeing where the source code came from? Do you think it's going to be a big issue going forward, or do you think it's only a big issue if you're at some place like Qualcomm or Intel or Google or somewhere big?
For me, I care about in the art side of things. I've often wondered with the Midjourney image, is there a way to identify which source images were utilized in whatever way to create a final image? And is it a small number? Is it like 10 or is it like 1,000? Because in my mind, similar to the code stuff or any written material, if you're able to identify where that came from, you're then able to do proper attribution and proper revenue sharing.
Yeah, but that's a much harder problem than people realize. The text one, I think, is a better example because images intuitively feel easier because we can like see them. That looks like that one. But if you take the words one as a better example, imagine plagiarized text. I put in 5,000 bucks into a chat bot thing and I get it to write me a paragraph on an essay. How do you tell which words came from which particular books under which context? Or if you can't do that, here's a better question. Can you tell the paragraph of text was generated with that particular system? Well, there are actual tricks for this. For example, in accounting, there's actually ways for actuaries to detect when people are fudging numbers because probability distributions are different for how people fake numbers versus real organic distributions. So just by looking at numbers that are put into a charts, you can tell someone's been messing with it because statistically it's incorrect numbers of percentages of certain, like sevens show up more often in faked books, basically.
Probably lots of threes,
Yes,
probably more
threes,
odd
yes.
numbers than even numbers.
And so
Be a lot more
similarly,
ones than real life. in
Yeah,
real
so
life.
there's actually a similar trick you can do with these kinds of large language models, where what you do is it's picking the best word. It's doing an algorithm, it's taking a sentence, and it's picking the next best optimal word. But what you can do is you can cheat the system, where if you actually have it pick the second best word every so often, then what you're doing is you're weighting the distribution of the words such that it is improbably accurate, that it is creating sentences that structure match. It won't look any different to the average person because it's still picking a good word. It is just not picking the optimal word for that language model. It means you could run that output text through a generator and say, is this distribution of words matching the probability that we've baked into our generator that it's likely to pick certain words at certain frequencies? So there are tricks to do it, but you can't do it post hoc. You have to actually bake these into the language models and use them as an identifying system. So you can put them in as kind of like watermarks, but you can't do it sort of post hoc resolving it unless you have, again, you're doing the like adversarial network thing where you're trying to analyze the data, analyzing the thing, and then do the like paper lookup. But that's much harder to do because you're looking for exact pattern matching. Generative code tends to not be as identical. So yeah, long story short, it's harder than people think, but it's doable, but it's not doable right now. But in the future, it'll be baked into these things and we will have IDs that'll be able to tell us where the stuff came from.
That's what I was thinking. Like it's impossible for a human to do it, but it's possible for the system just to be coded to say, hey, identify each aspect of this in such a way that we can say it came from this source and that source and the other source, which would help with accidental plagiarism. With enough time, the AI is going to plagiarize something from some book without actually having used that book as the source material. And people will say, look, it plagiarized this book. And if you can look back and be like, actually, it did not plagiarize that book. It just happened to be the same words.
Yeah, but again, that's kind of part of the problem too, is because, like, for example, if I took a watch and I broke it into individual pieces and I dropped it on the floor, you would be able to like use the math or the velocities or whatever to reverse engineer back based on the fall and scatter where I dropped it from. But you wouldn't be able to tell just on the pieces alone what the watch looked like, right? Because that information has been decompressed. And these language models and basically the way these systems work is you often vectorize the data. So it goes in as book, but by the time it's part of the generative system, it's been exploded out into something that's not even words anymore. It's using it in an n-dimensional vector space. And so there's not really a link causally. It's like if I give you a whole load of colors and then you mess the colors up and mix them into stuff and then use the colors to paint something, you don't have a link back to exactly which book I took color 5 from, right? That information is gone in that loop. So unless you literally keep a database of the pre-existing stuff and pair matches, you can't retroactively get that information back out. So it won't be possible with the existing stuff, but it can get more.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to Pal's question that he popped up. Where can I learn math required for Unity? I feel like this is probably the only question we'll end up taking this week, so may as well pop it up and answer it real quick. I honestly don't know what the best recommendation is personally. I think that for the majority of game development stuff, you don't need super advanced math. It comes in really handy if you're good at it, but if you struggle with it, getting at least up to the fundamentals of some really simple algebra, understanding variables, division and multiplication is 99% of what you'll end up doing. That in the mod thing, that percent. But there are some other, there are definitely uses as you get better at it. If you're actually enjoying the math and you're pretty good at it, you can get a lot of value out of it, speed up your development, and do a lot of really cool tricks too to make things easy. But I'm curious what resources you all would recommend for people who want to learn, maybe like with starting simple stuff and then some more advanced topics too.
Yeah, so the same as you said, the math is not required. Yeah? It depends more strongly on what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve it. As start, I would say if you want to go into math and want to learn more of it, I would say, I think it was in chat already, but I would say Freya. Yeah? Freya Hormat has right now some courses, some videos about math. There's math for game devs cards. It's 4 parts. Yeah, you can scroll a little lower. There's some of it, and she has also some topics on specific math problems that you can use. Second one is what we talked about. If you want to build shaders, the quality shaders for Unity has great math part. And if you want something with meshes, I would go to Habrador, I think it's called. He has great website about Unity and some problems with Unity, and on this this is one of his math courses that you can go through some problems. For example, checking if something is in front of you, is it behind you, left, right, making some movement on splines, checking intersections, checking if max is convex, and so etc., etc. So some advanced maths for calculating if you need some additional information from the plan. I think it even gives you the Voronoi and constraint Delanoy triangulation, so it's quite advanced math there.
This is cool. This is neat. I like it. It's got all the descriptions.
Yeah,
Explaining
I
it all.
suggest
It's not just the
Habrador
code.
because he has lots and lots of tutorials about Unity. He has a great tutorial about splines. He has great tutorial about programming patterns with examples how to use them in Unity. So yeah.
Yeah, this is very cool. I've
Yeah,
got
I'm gonna have to
save
check
this
that one out
off.
myself. I'll be honest, it's rare that I actually get new resources anymore. People tend to often link the same ones I've seen before, but
Yeah,
this is new, so I'm gonna have to check this out.
if you want, there's also link to his GitHub. I posted it. And if this is, for example, his way to showcase the game programming patterns in Unity. For example, if somebody wants to learn some basics for it, yeah.
Oh,
So he has
yeah. I'll drop this in
his
chat
Unity
too.
Yeah,
project.
that book was pretty good, by the way. If people haven't read it, you can read it free online.
Yeah. So it's going through the most useful programming patterns with some examples how you can use them. Yeah.
I also like.
Yeah, this isn't the book though. This
No.
is different. Just
I
to
think there's a
clarify
link to the
for
book
me.
at the top of the thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
the link there.
yeah, he has.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
okay, got it, yeah.
he gave the link to the book so you can read, and he made examples for it. Yeah.
Got it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest. I suck at maths. It's my weakest thing, and not by like a small bit, by a huge margin. Back when I was in school, I did something called the DATS test, or the different aptitude test. I was getting like 96s and 97s in things like various logical reasoning and whatever. But mechanical reasoning and maths, I was down in like 14s. I am woeful. My brain does not function around maths and specifically mechanical engineering, which is fascinating. I'm actually really bad at like engine repair stuff. So my point is I suck at that. I'm really, really bad, and I have to do what's very simple math, like the grid stuff you saw me do, takes me hours of watching lots and lots of content by people like Sebastian Lag and rewatching Code Monkey videos just to get my head around some of the basic rotations and stuff for it, because I'm just do not have the brain for that, unfortunately. So yeah, the short answer is you don't really have to be amazing at it. You just have to be good at finding and following instructions. Like if you can get to that point, you can be okay. In my case, I recommend just find people who talk about things well. I've mentioned before Code Monkey. I've mentioned before Coding Train. There is again, Sebastian Lag's channel is great. Anytime you get to watch someone work on a game, you'll get a lot of math sort of secondhand. So there's a YouTube channel, Thin Matrix, where he just makes games in Java, and you just get to watch him make games. And every so often he solves math problems like, how do I generate paths in my road? And you'll get to learn this stuff kind of by proxy. So for me, it's just about osmosis, as they say, right? Just learning through consuming things passively when other people do them.
Yeah, and last thing I wanted to talk, if you go higher than it, then you just have to go to, as I showed it, for example, my colleagues study, you have to go to university studies. Yeah, for example, last year we were checking some kind of erosion, water erosion, wind erosion, and so on. So we just went with my colleagues, 3D artists, to some studies from universities, how they develop new tools for this kind of thing. Yeah, but that's going, if you know all these resources and you know math from these resources, then you go this level and just search for universities, because lots of universities give amazing information, amazing stuff that you can see and read about with mathematics for games and similar stuff.
I wanted to also to remind everybody too, because I was looking and it actually did sell out now. The math in the shader book is pretty good too. If you want to do matrix math stuff and trying to figure that out, it never made any sense to me, but when I got to chapter 2, it's starting to make sense to me, and I'm pretty bad at math myself.
As a small side note, I'm gonna have to jump. I've just got a message from someone saying that I'm an hour late. I'm supposed to be at a pub for something, and I completely forgot. So
That's all right. It's about time to wrap things up anyway. So if you haven't subscribed already and hit the thumbs up button, please do. If you haven't checked out Jason Story's Ko-fi page to get into his Discord server, I'm going to find the link by scrolling down, and I'm going to pop it right up so you can hop in and join in on those discussions. Okay, I lied. I don't have. How did I not have the link in here? It like automatically got removed. Oh, there it is. Bam. Found it. It just didn't have a graphic. I need a big picture of your face right on there. So click on that. You can go donate $1 or more, and then jump into the Discord. Great discussions there. And also, Andrew's got the Fantasy RPG pack on sale. It's on sale right now, right?
As we.
So it's available.
Yep.
Bullet 50% off.
50% off.
Yeah, huge pack full of all kinds of awesome stuff. And of course, there's awesome Nature Manufacturer stuff on sale as well. As soon as there's that link. Find the other one. We've got the World Streamer. And you mentioned that you had a couple other assets too on sale, right?
Yeah, like World Streamer is on the flash deal. It's for about 8 hours. We also have the Environment Bundle, Forest, Mountain, Meadow, Ram, and Mountain Trees. Yeah. And the Lava is coming into flash deal in 16 days.
Nice.
16 days?
Yeah.
Nice. We're going to have to have a whole discussion about that. I'm just going to link your entire publisher page right here in chat. Everybody will be able to see some of those assets on sale. Oh, there's a lot of stuff. So 70% off, 50% off, 50%, 50%, 50%, 50%, 50%. Lots and lots of discounts. So yeah, go check those out. And then you guys have any other last words before we drop out? If not, I guess we'll be back next week.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. So yeah, we'll be back next week. I might do a little live stream later on this weekend, getting a couple new things set up and getting some of the latest course lessons released. We got a couple of new ones for the latest coursework that's focused a bit on AI and a couple other things. I sent out a survey with questions and there were a lot of interesting things to put in there. So we're trying to work them through that whole plan right now, today and this weekend. So keep an eye out for that. And then I guess we'll be back next Friday. Oh, and next Friday, assuming things don't change, the interview with John Riccatello will be going public as well. So I have to make sure that I get all the copyrighted audio stuff cut out of there and things. When I put up the pre-show streams, it is like every 5 seconds there's a copyright thing for all the background music and stuff. So I had to get all that kind of cleared up and stuff. But assuming everything goes right, I think I'm going to put it up next Friday publicly for everybody who didn't get to watch it at the conference. Nice. Thought that would be an interesting one. There's a lot of stuff on AI in that discussion as well. It was a big topic. So yeah. Anyway, if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribed and all that stuff, and then we will be back next week. Yeah. Oh, not live coding today on here, but I will be doing that sometime soon. Actually, probably not today, but probably sometime soon. And actually, I have got some plans to do some more Tilt 5 specific stuff. I got a couple ideas here and a couple things kind of planned out. I don't want to talk about it yet because I don't want to say the wrong thing before I finalize it. Anyways, thanks again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Go grab all that awesome stuff that's on sale, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.